Hello, Ana Paula. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Ana Paula, for inviting me to talk about deforestation, particularly in Colombia. You are all aware that the deforestation rates in Latin America, particularly outside Brazil in the continent, um, are relatively lower to other parts of the world. However, we have an overall annual deforestation rate of 1% or 1.1% per year. This, of course, varies if you start looking at the difference between different types of forests. So it's not the same, the forest loss that you find for tropical montane forests or Atlantic forests or tropical lowland forests or tropical dry forest. There is where you start to find interregional differences and also um, difference according to the forest type. In most countries in Latin America, the access to markets and agriculture and forest activities are really the main causes of deforestation. However, this also varies according to the different forest types. One of the recent hotspots of the region in deforestation is in northwestern Amazon. Northwestern Amazon is the area that perhaps is the most wettest area of the Amazon and is heavily and highly threatened by the expansion of the agriculture frontier and subsequent deforestation. And I'm talking about not only Colombia, but also Ecuador and north part of Peru. Um, One of the work that we do here in Colombia, it has been focused in this northwestern part of the Amazon. You have throughout the tropics, rock development increases the susceptibility of forests to deforestation and forest fragmentation, and we've done some studies um, proving or demonstrating in the region that forest edges increase the levels of disturbances and interact with fire, because fire is still in this region, is still frequently used for clearing, and is strongly associated with fragmented forests and associated with forest edges in the region in northwestern Amazon. Unfortunately, again, this northwestern part of the Amazon has become one of the most recent hotspots since over the last 5 years, perhaps. And it is really showing a fast speed of deforestation, both in Colombia and Ecuador, and also, again, in the Amazonian north part of Peru. However, there are differences in the countries. Fires, for instance, in Colombia are strongly associated um, to conversion to pastures, associated to rivers, to some roads, but road development is not so strong in the region. However, one of the recent studies that we've done in our group, it is regarding both the role of illicit crops, which is a crop that is embedded in the forest frontier and in this northwestern part of the Amazon is strongly present, but it's not, or we have done some studies that prove that it's not a dominant direct cause of deforestation. Although supports a frontier model of deforestation led or following infrastructure, which is really what is happening in the region. The expanding of the legal agriculture, the legal or some legal pastures and cattle grazing is really explaining deforestation in most of the regions. As you are aware, in Colombia we had a peace agreement. We had years of conflict with guerrilla groups present in the area, in particular this northwestern part of the Amazon. In the Colombian side, it's one of the most forested areas of the country, and there was a strong presence of these groups. 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, there was this finally agreement, a peace agreement was signed, and unfortunately, some of the consequences, environmental consequences and consequences for forests and ecosystems were not perhaps strongly taken into account. So it is a sad situation was happening after the peace agreement. Some of the groups remain, some of the people that belong to those groups did not mobilize out of the areas. Some of the people that we call dissidents remain in the areas, and we've done recently a paper showing that, for instance, in 2 years, the number of fires and deforestation associated with fires increased by 6 and 8 times inside protected areas and in the surrounding of protected areas. So there's been a lot of social movement. The peace was signed. Officially the groups moved out of the area, but some people remain and didn't have much alternatives. They're waiting for some land allocation to be able to do some activities. The state is still not present in some of those areas. The national parks authorities inside the protected areas don't have more than a symbolic presence in some of them. Actually, in some of the areas, they were not allowed to go in for a while last year. And some of those chaotic circumstances have made that deforestation has again increased in Colombia, and particularly in those areas where there was the presence previously of those groups. So the situation right now in Colombia is worrying. Deforestation is really high. There's a lot of speculation with land. There's the continuous conversion of forests to pastures that was already going on, but now it has been sort of like an explosion of that. There are some mining activities also starting to have a strong influence in the area. Um, and there's a lot of speculation with the land. People that think that eventually, because of all the peace agreement and land allocation that was discussed in those negotiations, will have title of those areas. They are occupying, they're cutting forests and introducing cattle or just for acquisition of the land. We also have some illicit crops that have increased in these areas, particularly in these particular areas that I'm talking about. So there has been also, unfortunately, an increase in the cultivation of coca for the area, so probably linked to those illicit activities and the illicit economy of a crop like this in an area where the state is still not controlling the territory and the local populations don't have much alternatives to move. Particularly, not only the locals that were already there and they had some kind of stable use of the land, some local immigration from other areas of the country, people that are going there because it's an opportunity to get some land, or they think it's an opportunity to get some land. Unfortunately, like it has happened in many other tropical areas of the world, after a war, after a conflict, things haven't settled, but have got more complicated in terms of ecosystem and deforestation loss. Anyway, I invite you to read some of the papers we've published in relation to this, and have fun and have good discussions in your meeting. So thank you.